Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Around the Farm. We had a bad windstorm come through and I'm just going to do a walk around of the damage. As you can see, the motorcycle stayed standing, which was pretty amazing because a lot of other things didn't. The National Weather Service has estimated straight line winds of about 90 to 100 miles an hour. There is a lot of suspicion that there was some rotation, but the National Weather Service won't confirm anything. But just by the way things are kind of strewn about, it seems like there had to have been some sort of rotation. First thing you're going to see here is the cab that my little brother bought for his 706. It flipped over about 3 times and all the glass got busted up. He had just got done putting a bunch of new glass into it and all that new stuff got wrecked. As we move over to the northeast corner of the property here, you can see what's left of the tent where we kept the race car. We raced the night before and it didn't go well, and we didn't even unload the car from the trailer. But the tent is completely destroyed. You can see the rest of it here. The only reason it was even still in the yard was because I had T-posts holding it in. And then you can see there the road was blocked off by a bunch of trees that fell down in the cemetery. And then about another half mile to a mile down the road, there was power lines that were snapped over, and so we didn't have power from probably about 4 o'clock in the morning until about 8 o'clock that night. There was also some power lines down this way, and the neighbor had a bunch of trees down as well, so you couldn't really get down the road unless you drove through the ditch and part of the field. But town was closed off, which is just a mile to the west or to the east. And so a lot of people were trying to get through on our road that had to get to Sioux Falls or had to get to work or whatever it was. And so our first priority was to get the road open so that people could get through there. As you can see here, the east wall of our small shed there was torn off. It actually took the 2x6 with it that held the girders on. So we were able to reuse the tin. We had to pound it straight and it doesn't look very pretty, but all we had to do was go pick up a 2x6 from Menards and we were able to get that put back together. Tipped a feeder over as well, and then there's a feeder down there kind of in the center of the screen that was knocked off of the blocks it was on, and the lid is now at the center of the screen laying in the pasture there. The hay rack that you see there is through the fence, and that actually didn't end up happening until after the worst of the storm was past and the wind changed directions, and it was sitting up just to the right of those trees there. And the wind changed directions and it blew it just enough to push it down the hill. And it went on the gravel road first and it looked like it was going to go to the opposite ditch, and then all of a sudden it turned and went right into the fence. But thankfully it kind of, the way it went into the fence, it created its own fence, and so the sheep couldn't get out around the hay rack. We also had the lid blow off of one of our little bins there, but that was an easy fix and the corn didn't get too wet on the inside. We did lose a lot of the trees, the 3 trees that we have in our backyard. This end one was the smallest one, and we probably lost the top half of it at least. And then the middle one wasn't so bad, and the other far end one was pretty tore up. We also lost most of the shingles on that part that sticks out of the roof there. That's a stairway up to the upper floor, and a good chunk of those shingles are gone. Thankfully, none of the vehicles were damaged at all. No windshields broken or anything like that, so we got really lucky there. There was a lot of people in town that had trees fall on their vehicles and stuff like that, so could have been a lot worse there. The boards you see there are actually part of the roof of this little shack that we built over here when we were kids, which was pretty rotten anyways, but it definitely flew apart a little bit. Then you can see there a big branch fell on my old Indy, but motor don't run in that one anyways, so not a big loss there. The cemetery took a pretty hard hit. There was a lot of trees that were completely uprooted. They got hit pretty hard back in 2004 and lost a lot of trees then. In fact, a couple of them actually fell kind of onto our property, but there's not a whole lot left for trees over there anymore. The gravity wagon there actually started out just to the right of the baler there, and I think it blew forwards and then got to a point where the wind caught it and it slid sideways. and it ended up being wedged on top of a cultivator over here. Nothing was really stuck together. We just kind of had to pull it off, and then the cultivator tipped forward, and we had to lift the cultivator and put a stand back under that. But once again, no damage. It just kind of just had to be all pulled apart. The livestock trailer just got pushed back about a foot, so we just had to pick that up and put a block back under the jack. Now the haystack you see here actually was squared off at the end. There was bales all the way through the tree grove and into the backyard, so the windstorm actually picked those bales up and threw them through the tree groves. There's places where there's twine strings hanging from the trees, and the hay itself is just gone. I mean, we didn't even find it in our yard. It blew a long ways away. But we pulled the good bales out of the trees that we could find, and the tarp that we used to cover the pile just rolled over to the other side, and so the tarp was in good shape still. That was reusable, thankfully, because that's not a cheap investment. But other than that, there wasn't any damage back here. My tractor was all right. Just a lot of tree damage. The grove is pretty much destroyed. You never used to be able to see through it, and you can see right through it now from the other side quite easily. So at some point we'll probably have to get in there and do some tree cleaning, but for right now we just worried about the stuff that was in our way. You can see here the neighbor's tree grove is pretty destroyed as well, and he actually had a machine shed come up out of the ground and go flying into the tree grove, and it lifted straight up where the poles were in the ground. The holes weren't damaged or anything. It was still perfectly round holes, like somebody had just drilled it with an auger. And so I got some aerial footage of that I'll put up a little later here, but that was just catastrophic. Here you can see some of those hay bales that got thrown through the trees, and I think that was probably the furthest one that was still in one piece, and I'm guessing anything else the hay blew probably miles away. But you can see more aftermath of that there where the bales didn't survive and you got hay all over in the trees. Here's a good example of how bad the tree grove is. You didn't used to be able to see through that. That was all leaves, and now it's branches, if that. Some more bales there in that pen. This piece of plywood here, that had just been leaning up against the barn, so all that did was tip over. That didn't come in from anywhere else. But in front of that there, you can see there's a tree down, and that one just missed the edge of the shed. In fact, I think it bounced off the end of it a little bit because the tin is kind of curled over. But no major damage. We just had to get it cut up and get it out of the way. And we did lose some branches off of a big cottonwood there that we've been wanting to get rid of for a while anyways. So, really no harm, just a lot of cleanup to do. Here's one of those cottonwood branches that fell off. That's actually the one that hit the edge of the barn. You can kind of see where the tin is curved over there. And then there's some more branches of it a little further out. Once again, no real damage, just a lot to clean up. And here again, you can see where that hay rack came down through the fence. And that pretty much makes a full loop around the property there. If you haven't had a chance to check out my video of the damage in Garrettson, go ahead and check that out. I thought we had it pretty bad until I drove through Garrettson, and it was terrible. The town probably has half the trees left that were there originally. So once again, a lot of cleanup there, but thanks for checking out the video. We have things pretty much under control now. Things are cleaned up, but leave a like, share, subscribe, and check back for more, hopefully more positive episodes of Around the Farm here in the near future.